Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we got another shop talk video, and today's topic is going to be why are mechanics quitting their jobs and just leaving in the modern day and age. And we're going to get into this in a second, guys, but before we go ahead and do so, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. It'll definitely help the channel grow. Alright guys, so the reason why I'm making this video is that, it's kind of interesting, and I'm actually kind of stunned that almost everywhere I go or I'm driving, let's say by a repair shop or a dealership or any, place that, hires and employs mechanics, I always see the same sign outside that says, "We're hiring mechanics." And at first, I was kind of shocked at this because 15 years ago, when I started off in this field, you couldn't drive by a row of dealerships and see a "we're hiring mechanics" sign. It just didn't exist. In order for me to get my first dealership job, guys, it was such a hassle. I literally had to call the service department, get with the service manager or service director, and it was very hard even getting through to him. And when I got through to him, he was like, "Oh yeah, just email me a resume." And then I physically went in there, gave him my resume, had to like show myself, and I was like, "Listen, I really want to work for your dealership and this group and this and that." And I had to kind of make myself stand out, instead of just being another resume in an email folder that got sent into him. And even after that process, to even get into that dealership, I mean, it was very strenuous, guys. It wasn't just as easy as, "Hey, are you a mechanic? Do you got tools? Can you get in?" Boom, all right, come on in. And to be honest with you, it's kind of what's happening today. Now, I went out a little bit on a limb here. Now, I already have my shop. Obviously, I'm not a mechanic for hire as far as working at a dealership, guys. But like I said, when I was looking for a job in this field and wanted to be a dealership mechanic, you could barely get in. It was such a tough process, and now it's so easy. So I took it upon myself. There is a dealership nearby to where my shop is that I noticed, "Hey, we're hiring" sign. So I just decided to call in and say, "Hey, my name is Mike. I need to speak with the service director. I see that you guys are hiring." And they're like, "Oh yeah, sure thing. Let me patch you through." It was like instant, like no wait. And he picks up. He's like, "Hey, my name is so and so. How can I help you?" I'm like, "Hey, Mr. So and so, my name is Mike. I noticed you guys have a hiring technician sign out there, and I was wondering what kind of positions you guys are hiring for." And he's telling me, he's like, "Well, we're actually looking for all positions." And he's like, "What qualifications do you have?" And I just told him, "Well, I've been a mechanic for 15 years. I've worked here and there, and mentioned stuff." And I'm like, I even ventured off and did my own thing for a few years. But I'm like, being a business owner, obviously has a lot of stress and everything. So I'm like, I'm just looking back into getting into the dealer service position and just being a technician again. And he was like, "Well," he's like, "I'm very interested." He's like, "I could probably start you out as a journeyman at X amount of dollars per hour and this and that." And gave me all the details. And now I'm not looking for this job, guys. This is just like, me doing like a little bit of a experiment here, I guess you can say. But the thing that really shocked me was this guy basically offered me the job through the phone without even seeing me in person, and gave me all the information and basically just gave me the offer with never meeting me once. I mean, that just goes to show how easy it's become. And I don't know if it's because they're desperate to hire service techs, that they're just willing to hire anyone and try them out and see how it goes until they finally land a technician that they can keep or that they want to keep. But to me, that just blows my mind because I couldn't do that 15 years ago. As a matter of fact, it was so hard for me to find a good dealership or a good place to work at that eventually it led me to opening up my own service center and my own shop as I have today. So it's just incredible. Now, there's a lot of things that, we can say that contribute to this, guys, but I've kind of narrowed it down to 3 topics, and I'm going to kind of go over them today. The first one that I think is the main contributing reason is, in the past few years, I know when I went to school, there was a lot of people that went to school to be a mechanic, and I actually worked with a lot of people that claimed to be mechanics that just weren't cut out for the field, guys. Most of the guys that I worked with in some various dealerships, they were just there to make their quick 12 bucks $20 an hour changing oil. They had no really high hopes of advancing or moving further into the dealer group or anything. And I think what has happened is as time has progressed, those guys, didn't have the ambition to do anything more. And as the older generation has retired and died out in this business, there haven't been anyone that's been willing to take over that position or be able to fill in the gap. And I think that's the biggest contributing factor in here, because, like I said, if you're working with a bunch of people that are just there to collect a paycheck and they're not interested in moving up within a company, what happens when people start retiring? I mean, it's going to get harder and harder to fill those positions and, get someone in those shoes. And I think that's the first reason why these dealerships right now are really hiring and looking for technicians. The second reason why I think right now dealerships are hiring just about anyone, guys, is that there have been a lot of turnovers in this field. Now, you can easily say it's because of this or that, but to be honest with you, when I did my experience video that I basically talked about, why I was leaving the dealership and why I bounced around as much as I did, it basically boiled down to, one of two things. Either it was pay or not getting something that was promised to me. But if you really backtrack it, guys, it doesn't matter about what position was promised to you, because at the end of the day, the only reason why you want that position to move up to the company is because of the pay. So really, pay is the number one contributing factor here. I have had buddies that worked at the dealership that were supposed to be at a certain rate, and they just couldn't get up there, and they weren't getting fed as much work because either they weren't their favorite for their advisor or whatever the case might have been, or just to say the dealership was slow. And that's going to cause a lot of people to basically jump ship. Now, a lot of these people that are jumping ship, guys, that are leaving, are either going to another dealership and either going through the same thing as they just previously went through, or they're finding better opportunities with better pay out there. Or what some are doing, in all fields that I've seen here now. I mean, I've also known people that were mechanics for years. The money wasn't right, and they wound up leaving the field and going back to school and doing something else, and we lost them completely. Then we got some guys that decided, hey, why am I here working as a tech? I could be a service advisor and move up in the dealership and make a commission and make more money than I could as a tech, and then eventually have an opportunity to move up as like a service director or manager or something, and basically take the easy way out. That's what's also happening in this field. Now, one big thing also that's happening is that people aren't leaving the mechanical field. It's just they're going to the bigger and better categories. Now, one example of this that I can mention is let's say a dealer tech that's working with consumers in the consumer market just decides to leave that market and go into like the heavy duty equipment side. This could be anything like a let's say trucking company. I actually do have a customer of mine that was a mechanic for automotive. He worked at the dealership for a couple years. He bounced around back and forth, kind of like what I did, what my backstory is. And he finally had enough because he wasn't getting the right amount of pay. And he started working with a company that has a fleet of trucks. So this guy is working on diesels, on gas trucks. I mean, it's just a fleet of trucks that he works on. And he's getting paid a good dollar to do so. And it's completely out of the consumer market. He says it's great because you just basically have a truck that has an issue, you fix it, and there's no bickering or complaining from a consumer or from an advisor saying, you didn't do this right or that right. It's just they take care of the issue and they move on. These trucks are road trucks that get stuff done, and it basically takes off a lot of stress, and it's a better work environment, and they pay top dollar because these trucks are always needed to be working. So there's a lot of contributing factors to this, guys, but I believe pay is the biggest one, and we're losing a lot of people due to this. So this is also a big factor in it. All right, guys, so the third and final point that I'm going to make on this, why I believe that there has been a decline in mechanics, coming out and working and kind of, taking up this profession. And that's what's leading us in this frenzy right now where everyone is hiring and they're looking for mechanics, is going to be that this job comes with a pretty bad rep. If you ask most people that take their cars into service centers, whether it be a dealership or repair shop, they kind of have a negative look towards mechanics. I know in my days, I've even had people make comments like, "Oh, what do you know? You're just a mechanic. You know, you're not educated." And it's like, okay, wow, thanks. And that's not the case, guys. I've worked with a lot of mechanics throughout the years, and some of these guys that I've worked with have been really, really smart. Just to kind of give you guys an idea, when an engineer makes, all these engineering designs on a car, and let's say it's a new model year and it comes out to, the dealerships, and then people start buying them and they start running into certain issues that are repetitive and it's always the same issue. Those multi-million dollar paid engineers that went to school for, like 30 years and have masters on top of masters, and obviously I'm over exaggerating here, guys, but those really highly educated people that went to school that designed the car and the systems within that car, look at us, the mechanics, to basically solve their issues. There's even been, situations where I've worked at the dealership where they've had a certain amount of issues on cars. Let's say a new model year has a particular issue, and me and my fellow techs, figured out a way to solve that issue before it even became an actual recall or some sort of item that the manufacturer was like, "Hey guys, we need to start taking care of these because we've noticed the customers are having this issue." And there's been times when we've taken care of it, and then we've had the engineers come to the dealership trying to figure out why our dealership wasn't getting those comebacks or having those warranty issues like any other dealership was. And we were simply like, "Hey, this is what we're doing," and it's taking care of the issue. And not only were they shocked at how easy the solution would be, but it's also funny to us on how overlooked they, went into the process where they couldn't think of something as simple as that to fix their issue. So the whole stigma of mechanics are being uneducated and not knowing what they're doing is completely wrong, guys. This lifestyle of being a mechanic, it's not for everyone. I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people couldn't do what I do simply because it's not the easiest. Sometimes you're working out in the cold, sometimes you're working in extreme heat, and that's not for everyone. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we are, uneducated or dumb or anything like that, or that we're bad people. It's just we love working on vehicles. We find this line of work easy, and we're good at it. So that's why we do what we do. Plus, it's a good means of supporting our lives and our families, and everyone and everything that we love. So that's why people do this. I mean, if you gave me a desk job versus this job, I mean, I'm gonna take this job over and over. And to be quite honest with you guys, I've had a job where I got burned out of working at the dealership that I'll, probably make a video on eventually. But I love being a mechanic. I am one of these guys that quit the field entirely for a couple years when it got a desk job that was in automotive, and it paid more than I had ever made at the dealership. I could only do it for a couple of years before I had to get back into the field, and I couldn't take it anymore. Like, I missed doing this so much that I took a pay cut and came back to the field. So it just goes to show that not everything that they say about mechanics are true. It's just we're people just like everyone else, guys. And I think that stigma that we have a bad rep and people think of us as bad in some sense of way or uneducated kind of keeps the newer generation away, because they're probably thinking about it as like, "Oh, I love cars, I can be a mechanic and I'm good at it, but I don't want to be associated with the stigma of people thinking I'm, let's say, uneducated, and that will lead to maybe, let's say, in the future they don't get let's say married, or people might it just might make their life difficult." Think of it like that. Imagine if my rationale was, "Oh, I don't want to be a mechanic because people are going to think I'm always dirty and uneducated and this and that, and then I'm not going to be able to ever have a girlfriend or eventually have a family, and then it's going to be a crappy life." Imagine people think of it like that. That's just not the best way to think about it. And I think the younger generation, being so easily influenced by little things like this, is just kind of, doing it because it's not necessarily true, guys. It's just a bunch of plop, if you ask me. This is a very good field. You can make a lot of money, you can support your family, and live a good life doing this. Especially if you have side work. I mean, sometimes you can do a side job and make, money quicker than a doctor can doing surgery. So, it's a good field, at least in my book, when it comes to that. All right, guys. So these are the three opinions that I hold that I believe are hurting the mechanical field right now, and why there is a shortage, and why everyone's hiring mechanics. Almost everywhere you go, you see a "we're hiring mechanics" sign. I would love to hear you guys' opinions on this, so feel free to comment down below, guys. That pretty much wraps up this video. So like usual, please comment, like, and subscribe. Definitely helps the channel grow. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.